Okay, good morning everyone. Shalom Aleichem. We're continuing Mishnah Berura Daf HaShavua. We're learning Siman Kuf Chav Ches. Seif Gimel. Siman Kuf Chav Ches Seif Gimel. Im Allah Pam Achas B'yoim Zeh Shuv Eino Oiver Afilu Amr Lo Yaleh. If the Kohein already Duchened, he is not over on any asay. Even if they told him to go up, even if they washed his hands, even if they said Kayanim. Why not? What about Koi Savarchu Es B'nai Yisrael? What about Bittul Mitzvahs Aseh Achas Ka'over B'shalosh Aseh? Says in Mishna Berura, Hainu I Yisram Le Tzibur Achrino. How would it happen if another tzibur comes his way? The Torah didn't obligate more. So, what about if let's say he's in Eretz Yisrael, he's in a Sephardic shul, he already duchened shachris, is he over an asay if he doesn't go up for Musaf? No, he's not over basay. What if the Shliach Tzibur forgot Yalav Yavai? So in other words, the Shliach Tzibur said Chazar Sashatz, they duchened, and then he said, Oy vay, the Shliach Tzibur forgot Yalav Yavai, so he has to go back and daven Shemana Esrei again. So the question is, does he have to, do they duchen again? So, the Shaus Teshuvas Har Tzvi, Reb Chaim Noah says the Kohanim do not duchen again. The Shevet HaLevi says the Kohanim do not duchen again. However, the second time the Shat says Elokeinu Melkei Avosenu, which is Miseder HaTfilah. However, the Eishal Avram of Buchach says no, the Kohanim should duchen again. Rabbi Yoshev says that if they forgot Yalav Yavai, they don't duchen again. Because it's not saying Yalav Yavai is not like not davening at all. They davened, they just didn't say Yalav Yavai. But if they miss the same Talamat Levracha, then they do have to duchen again. So Rabbi Yoshev has an amazing hachra'ah, that it depends what kind of mistake it is. If it's a kind of mistake that is just, you have to go back because you missed an insert, you don't duchen again. But if it's a mistake that renders the whole Shemana Esrei null and void, it's like you didn't daven, then they do have to duchen again. Okay. Now, this is a very interesting Mishnah Berura, by the way. Who decided you only have to duchen once again? The Torah says, Koi Savarchas B'nai Yisrael Pamachas B'yoim. Who made up that duchening is once a day? Where does that come from? But by the way, that's a general question in Kol HaTorah Kula. The Torah says put on tefillin. How often? Maybe every 72 hours. Maybe every week. Maybe once a month. Maybe it's like Amalek, once a year. Who decided that we put on tefillin once a day? The same thing for tefillah. Midairaisa, tefillah is once a day. Who decided once a day? Where does it say that? What's the basis of that? There's a very important Kesef Mishnah. The Beis Yosef says in the Kesef Mishnah on the Rambam that if the Torah says to do something, Svara dictates, what it means is once a day. This has many, many ramifications in halacha. For example, do you love Hashem? I hope so. Were you Mekayim it? How often do you have to be Mekayim it? At least once a day. All the mitzvahs asay, you need to be Mekayim at least once a day. Yeah, it's a general rule in all the mitzvahs. That's the basis of this Mishnah Berura, that duchening is once a day. Now, the Mishnah Berura says, if you go up a second time, you're doing a mitzvah. Now, I was thinking that I just had something like this. On Purim, I davened by the early minyan, but I had to lane at the second minyan. Okay? So I came back to lane for the second minyan. But l'chachil, you're supposed to lane with tefillin, so I put on my tefillin. Do you make a bracha? You would make a bracha. The only thing is, I wasn't Mesiach Das. I wasn't Mesiach Das. I went home, but a few, 20 minutes is not a hefsek, And also, 20 minutes is not hefsek, and halicha is not a hefsek. So I did not make another bracha. So would a kohen who is not mesiach das from duchening make another bracha the second time he duchens? What would you say about that? Because the Maimer Mordechai compares duchening to tefillin. So would you make another bracha? What would you say about making another bracha? See, I wouldn't say it's compared to tefillin, because of the following reason. Tefillin is a chepza shel mitzvah. So even if you take it off, you're not mesiach das from the tefillin itself. I don't know if you could say the same thing about Berchas Kohanim. Berchas Kohanim is an act. Once you've done the act, what is left of it that you're not mesiach das from? Would we say such a thing? Or should it be like any bracha? If I made a shahakal, so as long as I'm not mesiach das from that shahakal, it works on any food. I'm not sure. So far we haven't seen any svar that the kohen would not have to make another bracha. But the Dirshu quotes the Minchas Chinuch and the Maimer Mordechai that compare this mitzvah to tefillin, that you make a bracha every time you put it on. I'm just pointing out that's not necessarily the case. Okay. By the way, another factor is that we're going to come across, there are Rishonim that hold that if you don't have two Kohanim, the Duchening is not Doiraisa. You need two Kohanim for Duchening to be Doiraisa. So what would happen if the first time in the shul there's only one Kohen? Should the Kohen, then it could be the Kohen is Mavato Doiraisa if he doesn't go up. In other words, if the Kohen Duchened, and then he says, you know what, I'm not in the mood of doing it again. Hey, you know, Mr. Kohen, the first time you did it, might not have been you might not have been fulfilling it midoraisa. Okay, let us proceed. Says Sif Dalid. If the Kohanim don't want a duchen, they don't have to wait outside only when the chazan calls up Kohanim. But so to avoid questions about their lineage, the minhag is they don't enter the shul until Berchas Kohanim is over. Meaning, technically, they only have to be out of the shul when the Shliach Tzibur says Kohanim, but they could be back in the shul for Berchas Kohanim, for the Berchas Kohanim proper. However, in order to avoid questions about their lineage, they stay out of the shul for the whole thing. Siv Katan Yud Beis. Kisha Kohanim einam roitzim. Kagoin shu chalash v'chadayim. Let's say the Kohen is weak and he can't hold up his hands for so long. So now, even though the Mechaber says they need to leave for Kohanim, the Magen Avram brings the name of the Mordechai, they need to be out for Ritzei. Why? So that people don't question their lineage when they don't see them making the move and be oika raglav when Ritzei is said. Also to avoid the Levim who pour the water to tell them, no, I need to wash your hands.
What if nobody knows who they are? What if it's a person who's a stranger, he's a guest? Nobody knows it's a kohen. Do we have this issue?
If nobody knows who they are, it's like a theoretical question, because I don't think you could rely on that, you know? You never know. You never know. I mean, there are 10 Jews in the room. Nobody's going to know who you are. Somebody's got to know you're a second, you know.
If somebody's from out of town and he's visiting or something.
Out of town. It's a small world these days, you know. I don't think it makes a difference. Because of someone who's taka puzzle to go to the duchen, even if he's only puzzle d'Rabbanan, does not need to leave. When the chazan calls, he doesn't mean them. He doesn't mean them. However, if someone who's a balmum should leave, because people don't necessarily know that they have a mun. let's say they tell you explicitly, go up. Or let's say all the shul has are disqualified kohanim. That certainly when the shel tzibur calls kohanim, he means them also. He means them. They don't have to go up. You're only over an asay when you're the one who decides not to go, not when the chachamim prevent you from going. And in this case, you are not the one who is holding yourself back. It's the chachamim. So even if they told you explicitly, go up, you don't have to go up. You're not over an asay. V'yesh koyach biyadam la'asoseh. And the rabbis have the koyach to tell you to do this, like the Shar Tzion says, Yesh koyach b'devreim lakar daven ha'torah b'shev v'al taseh. Nevertheless, let's say all a shul has are psulim d'Rabbanan. Mitzadei el Yarabba sheyetzel l'chutz kadem ritzei. The El Yarabba is still inclined to say that they should go out before ritzei. V'chein mashmei hagoas Rabbi Kiva Eger ayin sham. Okay, so the Mechaber says that kohanim who don't want to duchen, they don't need to leave only when they're being called, but they could be there for berchas kohanim. Ela b'sha ratzolaimer umamela in chal aleim shuv chiyuv afilu k'shei kansu achakach v'chanal b'sif beis. So in other words, what do we learn in Sif Beis? That in order to be Mekayim the mitzvah, it's only chal on you the chiyuv to duchen if they called koyanim. Once they called koyanim, then there's no chiyuv on you anymore, so you could go back in. Even though, by the way, if you remember in Sif Beis we said that a kohen who doesn't duchen when they call koyanim is over ba'aseh. However, the Mishnah Berura said that he only can go up if he's akar raglav. But in loy akar raglav, he's not allowed to go up. So even though he's over ba'aseh, he can't go up if he's not akar raglav. But in this case, if you weren't there for them calling you kohanim, then you're not over ba'aseh. Again, you're only over ba'aseh if you hear them say kohanim. If you did not hear them say kohanim, you're not over ba'aseh. But if you did hear them say kohanim, and you're loy akar raglav, even though you're not allowed to go up, but you're still over ba'aseh. One more, shehim pegumim. What's an example of pegumim? Ratzolaymar, b'nei grusha, u'b'nei chalutza. Okay, Rabbi, so we'll hold it over here. We'll pick it up Bez Hashem Monday in Sif Hey. Have a great day.